Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 217. That is the 217th trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series here at PR from the Heart as part of our summer reading season. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the co-host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, joined as always by my faithful furry friend and forever companion, little Forrest. He is reminding me that it's hard to believe, but we're past the midway point of the summer. Where are things going? Sooner than we know it, we will hear the school bell ringing in addition to the trolley once again. And after that, the holiday season will be going. But we're all about being in the present moment here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We hope that all of you are continuing to enjoy your summer, wherever you are, wherever you may be. Today here, on this week's trolley stop of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, we're going to be talking about something very important. And it really connects to the root of being with our emotions and being with our feelings. Because oftentimes, when we're not being with our emotions and our feelings, we can take the time to then project onto other people. And when we take the time to project onto other people, whether it be anger or rage or any of those sorts of emotions on that spectrum, it can really look like, sound like, and feel like that we're bullying others. We may not even be consciously aware of it. And there's very much times, especially when maybe things aren't going right or you're experiencing some sort of a frustrating day, maybe you're moving through a challenging season in your life, that you can actually be bullying yourself. And you may not even realize it. I'm sure that you can probably connect with and empathize with the occasional being hard on yourself. And this is one of the great things about children's books, because there's always the solution to our problem. The answers that we seek oftentimes are found in the form of a good children's book. And leave it to a brand new children's book that has a very pretty color on the cover and throughout the course of the pages to remind us of the importance of empathy, compassion, and understanding, not only for other people, but being kind to ourselves. I'm sure that Mr. Rogers is smiling from heaven when he's looking down on us, knowing that we are definitely covering some very important things with the back-to-school season just around the corner. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series this week, maryyoungauthor.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. You can purchase and enjoy your copy of the brand new best-selling children's book, Pink Shoes. It is now available. Again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to leave a 5-star review for Pink Shoes if you feel called and guided to do so. That's one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series here this week, to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. We do our part to also color coordinate here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. The trolley now heads all the way from America's finest city, that is San Diego, California, over to the DMV, just right outside of our nation's capital. Joining us is our featured guest here on episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, best-selling children's author, one of the newest members of the PR from the Heart family, best-selling children's author Mary Young. Mary, we appreciate your free time and joining myself and little Forrest, and congratulations on the release of your book, and perfect timing as well to boot.
Thanks, John. I'm happy to be here. Very excited. Very excited.
We also encourage all of you, again, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, if this message is striking a chord in your heart, if you know someone who has been bullied and is needing some form of support, a little bit of a boost, so to speak, a little bit of inspiration, some encouragement, some empowerment, and most importantly, if you simply just want to put out the good word about this message, the messages that we're going to be sharing that are found in the pages of Pink Shoes, one of the many ways that you can also pledge your support for Mary, in addition to us here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, to subscribe to Pierre from the Heart's official YouTube channel. Share this very special trolley stop that you are now enjoying. That is episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. And you can join the more than 17,000 members of the PR from the Heart family that are our loyal subscribers to our YouTube channel. Miriam, I'm really excited to talk about your book. And one of the things here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, we're all about origin stories because it always begins for all of us at some particular point in time. And the great thing is that when we have a Children's Book Spotlight series episode, what we refer to as a trolley stop, there's always two origin stories. There's the origin story of the book, and then there's the origin story of the author. Could you share with us, because you have a very beautiful story that I feel deserves to be shared, not only just your children's book, but your own personal story as well, too. You're a veteran educator on your end of things, 15 years. Could you share with us where it really all began for you when you knew that a large part of your purpose, your mission, I believe that the beloved spiritual teacher, New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Wayne Dyer would use the term Dharma. When did you realize that a large part of your purpose, your mission, your path was meant to better the lives of children?
Exactly when that light bulb moment occurred, I'm not really sure. But what I am sure of is that my entire life, I grew up in a very large family. I'm the middle of 9 children. I always loved books. I loved writing. I was a great I was the helper. I was always the helper. So it was pretty unexpected that I went to college and got both of my degrees in education. And I've always been in service to kids across the spectrum. And I would read and teach books. I read children's books when I taught preschool. I taught Shakespeare when I taught high school. I was always fascinated with the stories. And I always told myself, one of these days I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And it never really took off other than I'm going to do this. You know, I was always with books. You know, I was a teacher. And growing up, you know, we weren't allowed to watch TV. I mean, like kids do today. My father would always say, get a book, read a book. So, you know, books just were my friend. You know, I can remember growing up and walking a block up from our house to the bookmobile that would come to my neighborhood. And we would check out books. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for that, you know, and very quickly, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White became my favorite book of all time. Still is to this day. I've actually read it to my grandchildren. So I don't know that there was a exact moment in time where I said, I'm going to be an author one day, but I always knew that was something deep within that I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I had grandchildren that a fire within me started burning. And I would read them books and I thought, oh, I could write this. I could write a book like this. I could write a book on this topic. And it just kind of took off from there. I mean, it was something that I talked about with my own children, but it really wasn't until the grandkids came along that the fire started burning hot and heavy. And then things started happening. And I was actually in the process of writing a children's book about my oldest grandson's love of the bucket swing. he just loved being squeezed into this tight little bucket swing. And I used to joke and say, my gosh, you're getting too big. One of these days, Mimi's not going to be able to get you out of it. And we would laugh. And I said, I'll have to write a book about this. Well, that was the book I was writing at the time that he experienced meanness from some of his classmates. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's the book I'm supposed to be writing.
It's very, the message of bullying, and we're going to be diving in deep with regards to this. I'm really glad that you trusted yourself in that moment and in those series of moments, because oftentimes, we know what it is that we want to do. And it's like, the universe comes through, spirit comes through, God comes through, and it's a matter of, this is what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And you really trusted that. You trusted that message in the process. And I'm so glad that this book is available. And I'm sure you've probably we'll talk a little bit more about this as well, but I know for a fact that this message really hits home for me. One of the reasons why I started doing the children's book Spotlight series years ago was as the result of having a stronger desire to reconnect with my own inner child, just to really strengthen that relationship even more. That was a process, and it still is an everyday process for all of us when we want to take the time to, work on different parts of ourselves, strengthen connections, whether it be with our inner child, our teenage self, our adult self. And knowing the fact that this book is on the market, and the fact that it's helping, and in many respects probably saving many children's lives, I'm just really like, the timing of our connection and having this children's book Spotlight series episode leading into the back to school season is absolutely perfect. And we'll talk more about all of that. During one's mission, one's purpose, one's life, we can experience some challenges, some difficulties, some obstacles, some problems, some stressors, troubles, worries, you name it. They're kind of they're all on the same energetic wavelength. It's kind of like, you want to be vibing on what I call the rainbows and gumdrops energy, but life has contrast. We have, the positives and the negatives, and we have to be able to move through those challenges and difficulties to get through to the other side. Specifically of note, whether it be through your teaching career, whether it be through your time as in working as a realtor on your end of things, and most notably with writing this book. And before we talk about the book as well, what are some of the specific challenges and difficulties of note that you've experienced along your path? And what were some of the things that helped you to get through to the other side of those challenges and difficulties?
In terms of writing Pink Shoes?
I would say that plus anything else that comes to mind along your path that you feel comfortable in sharing.
So I can honestly say that I was never bullied growing up, but I witnessed a lot of it. And when I was a teacher, I was a special ed teacher, and I saw a lot of my students being treated differently because of their special needs. And I was always fairly outspoken in my teaching roles about, some of the consequences that were doled out I didn't always think were fair. I felt that some of the special needs students were being treated differently. So in terms of challenges, I think I've always questioned whether or not we were doing the right thing by somebody. And as I got older and a little more removed from a specific role, a teacher role, our children were grown, I became more comfortable in speaking out about what was right, what was fair. You know, when I was growing up, there was a lot of talk about the golden rule. You know, don't do unto others what you wouldn't want done to you. You know, or do unto others as you would like to have done unto you. And that was a big deal. That was taught through the church. It was taught at home. You know, you were always expected to treat people with kindness and fairness. And so maybe the younger me would have turned a blind eye to a situation that wasn't right. I found that as I got older, having raised our kids and now seeing our grandkids coming along, I was no longer willing to just be silent about right and wrong. I think that as a society, we've become more comfortable with judging everything. You know, you're either right or you're wrong. You're either good or you're bad. You're either wearing the right clothes or you're not. And I find that, I guess, if anything, the biggest challenge growing up for me, and as I've gone through life in all of my different professional positions, is finding the balance between speaking up and saying, enough, that's enough. You know, this is not right. And I feel very comfortable in my grandmotherly role saying, no, this is not okay. You know, what happened to kindness? What happened to compassion? What happened to love? You know, why are we so quick to just judge and be mean? I mean, I think we all need to take a good look in the mirror, you know, and you know, I tell my family, silence is complicity. If you don't speak up, you're as bad as the person doing the wrong thing. So that's been my challenge, finding the balance.
Well, you're definitely in a very significant way by releasing this children's book into the world. And I really want to share this as well, too. It's because I'm a huge proponent of all children's books being blasted out into the world. Kids need the more books, the more children's authors, the better. But I feel that the intentionality of the message in which is shared is really now important more than ever beforehand. And again, especially as we're heading into the back to school season, bullying has been around since probably the dawn of man, right? And since the beginning of time. But there's been different facets of bullying, right? You know, before it was just, you know, picking on someone in school. And then obviously now with the advent of the internet and social media and trying to fit in more, you know, kids now more than ever before as well, too, want to be accepted and to fit in, maybe even more than when we were growing up as kids, right? Because there's just that desire to be accepted and appreciated. But one of the great things about your book, and we're going to be talking more about this momentarily, is the importance of not only standing up for yourself, but honoring yourself and embracing all of your amazingness, your uniqueness, your quirks, so to speak. If you have your own pair of pink shoes, so to speak, to embrace those, just like we're embracing Pink Shoes, the brand new best-selling children's book from best-selling children's author and former special education teacher Mary Young, who is joining us as our featured guest here in episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Once again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Mary's official website, maryyoungauthor.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com. Be sure to leave a 5-star review if you feel called and guided to do so. Again, one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Mary is by leaving a 5-star review on Amazon, letting her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library or your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and you do not see that they stock their copies of Pink Shoes, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about Pink Shoes right here in episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, superintendents, not only is the back to school season just around the corner, but we know that all of you are fully in the midst of preparing the 2024-2025 school year for your students. To facilitate your own author's school visit with Mary, you can connect with her via her official website, which again, we've included in the description below. That is maryyoungauthor.com. A great book to be able to share with your students as part of an author's school visit for the 2024-2025 school year. One of the favorite times on a Children's Book Spotlight series episode is when we crack the cover and we dive into the pages of the children's book that we are featuring on the program to kind of tunnel in a little bit on this further. I know that you had mentioned, obviously, being a grandmother on your end of things and being a special ed teacher and seeing bullying in different forms, different incarnations, so to speak. Before we talk about the book, why did you, because you could have easily said, maybe at some point in time I'll write a book on bullying in X number of years, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 7 years. One of the things about life that I've found interesting is that, you know, when you're shown to do something, it's easier to do it in that moment or relatively shortly thereafter, because the more you push something off, the more difficult that it lands up in terms of one being able to finish and accomplish whatever that is. Could you share with us specifically about the desire to release this particular book out into the world now, especially coming off the heels of the pandemic? You could have waited, you could have said another rainy day, you could have chosen another topic. Why this particular topic and why this time?
I'm going to answer that question, John, and then I also want to just add, with regards to the earlier question about my challenges, I will say that even though I knew I had to write Pink Shoes, in the moment that I looked at my daughter and said, that's my book, Pink Shoes. And I can vividly remember the day I said that to her. That's the book I need to write. That's what I'm supposed to do. I quickly questioned, wow, that's a dark topic. You know, how can I write a children's book about this that children will want to read, that won't leave them crying or upset or not liking the book because they don't like the topic? So that was a ginormous challenge for me to present the story in a way that kids would find hopeful and encouraging. But when my grandson came home from school and actually lived the experience of the book, you know, he had a pair of pink shoes, sneakers that he loved. They were very cool sneakers. He's a first grader, and he was made fun of because of his pink shoes. And this is a kid who, he's the nicest kid in the world and thinks highly of everybody. And he was so woe begone because he was made fun of. And he didn't want to wear the shoes and felt betrayed and hurt and like he didn't belong. It's not even about being accepted, it's about belonging. You know, he felt like he didn't belong there. And he starts questioning everything about himself. And we already know that coming out of the pandemic, the pediatricians were seeing all kinds, and educators were seeing all kinds of social, emotional issues with kids because of all the isolation they had experienced through the pandemic. So in that moment, I just thought, oh no, the time is now. This needs to come front and center. You know, you cannot solve a problem if we don't first admit there is one. So let's put this out on the table. Let's have conversation about this. And I think it's the conversation. Kids need to know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what can I do? Do I have to just hide the pink shoes and not wear them again and become somebody different? Because if it's not the pink shoes, it'll be your brown shirt or your curly hair. There will always be a pink shoes to make fun of. So I just thought, it's not the pink shoes, but we need to have a conversation about kindness, respecting our differences, finding strength in that, not fearing it. Our diversity is our strength. And I was very concerned because after talking to kids, I realized they don't know what to do. They don't know that they can tell an adult. They don't know that they can turn around and say to the person being mean to them, stop it. I don't like that. Not that that's going to stop it, but it's okay to assert yourself. You know, and when I go into schools to present pink shoes, you know, I have created an anti-bully pledge that I want to pass out and have kids sign. I mean, we need to bring this front and center and blow it up. You know, we need to empower kids. No, this is not okay. This is not normal. This is not kindness. And when somebody does this to you, these are the things you can do. Okay, we need to empower them to handle it. And I think it's very important. You know, it's always difficult to talk about things that are difficult.
Correct.
That doesn't mean that we shouldn't. We must.
You touched upon several different specific threads, and this ties into two of the main reasons why I really love your book. Number one, of many. Number one, the fact that this is a very relatable story. We, in some way, shape, or form, have experienced bullying in our lives, whether we've been bullied by a bully or we have been the bully unto ourselves.
Right.
And so that is extraordinarily important, as well as bridging conversations with our kids, bridging conversations with ourselves. Because one of the things I remember when the spirit of Mr. Rogers kind of came back into my life, this is around like shortly after my grandmother passed in the summer of 2013. And I even asked her very point blank, being part Polish, we refer to our grandmothers as babcia. So I said, babcia, I said, can you, I'm calling in for a compassionate, kind, masculine influence in my life to remind me, to help me, to support me in being kinder to myself and more loving to myself. Mm-hmm. At which point in time, spirit of Mr. Rogers comes like, ploop, you know, kind of like a little sliding gumball machine. And he was not afraid of having those kinds of conversations, whether it be talking about divorce or death or anything challenging. He would always say that anything that is mentionable is manageable, and anything that is manageable is mentionable. And it's very easy to say, well, you know, these kids are being bullied. They're not my kids, right? But in some way, shape, or form, it always comes back to ourselves. And with everything that we're seeing in the world, all of the anger, all of the animosity, all of the vitriol in many respects, it really goes back to being kinder to ourselves. Mr. Rogers said that the answer to all of our problems is to be kind, to be kind and to be kind. And it really just starts with that conversation. That's one of the things that we're doing here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. We never like to give away the whole kit and caboodle. That's an old vaudevillian term in many respects. That means to not give away the whole thing. For those who are learning about your work, who are learning about Pink Shoes, as we crack the cover and dive into the pages of Pink Shoes, could you share with us a little bit more about Jackson? So Jackson is the main character in the story, and he has a little brother, Carson, and they go shopping for some new shoes. And that's really where it begins. But can you share with us a little bit more about the story without giving away the whole kit and caboodle, and specifically what you're hoping that children and parents and families, and especially those who are older, who are maybe either in the process of being bullied or have bullied themselves their entire life, what are some of the specific things that you want those different kinds of people, all of us, to take away after reading this story?
I want the bullied kids and the bullies. I want both of them to be shown grace, because we know hurt people hurt people. So it's not just the bullied that need compassion and conversation, but the bully does too. And, you know, sometimes there's conversation amongst adults. Well, are you sure he was bullied, or was he just being mean? It doesn't matter. If we're having to ask that question, he was being mean. And when you're bullied, somebody's being mean to you. So that's beside the point. That's the splitting of the hairs that I see going on amongst some parents. So my attitude is that Pink Shoes lays out the story of a little boy just being himself, fell in love with a pair of pink sneakers, wanted to wear them to school. He was made fun of them by other students. His solution, Jackson's solution, was, I'll just stop wearing them. I'll wear the shoes, the other pair of shoes that I have. Don't like them as much, but I won't get teased or bullied if I wear them. That's one solution. But we need to empower Jackson and other kids like Jackson to continue to wear the pink shoes, and with adult help and intervention, get the other kids to understand that Jackson has a right to be Jackson, and we can all live together and be happy. So I know that in the schools, bullying is a big deal. And I know that when the schools know about it, they're quick to intervene. But I'm afraid, and the research backs up what I'm about to say, that a lot of bullying goes unreported, especially at the high school level, where the bullying takes the form of cyberbullying quite often, especially amongst girls. So I think that we need to not just say bullying's bad and label it. That doesn't do anything for solving the problem. That doesn't get us to the other side. We need to start having discussion about, these are things you can do. And one of the things you must do is tell an adult that you trust, whether it's your parent, a teacher, a counselor, it doesn't matter, but tell somebody. And then that parent can bring it to the attention of authorities at the school or whatnot. In Pink Shoes, Jackson's mother discovers that he's no longer wearing his beloved pink sneakers, and she asks him, where are your sneakers? And he claims he doesn't know. like most kids. They just disappeared, and mom's supposed to believe that. So she goes looking for them, and she finds them in the trash. And then she goes to Jackson, and they have a conversation, and he asks her if pink is a girl color, because that's what he was told. And she said, there are no girl colors or boy colors. There's just colors. So it starts a conversation, and from there you can talk about kindness, doing unto others as you would have people do unto you. Growing up, the golden rule. I mean, we were taught the golden rule at every turn. And we need to bring civility back. We need to start practicing kindness with ourselves, with others. And we need to teach it. We actually need to teach kindness. We need to give kids tools to be kind to themselves and be kind to others. And I also think it's important, one way to neutralize a bully is for other kids to support the victim, the kid who's being bullied, because that will shut the bully down. So there's lots we can do as grown-ups to help our kids manage this.
Very true. And eventually we can get to the point, and one of my favorite passages in the story, and I don't feel this gives away the whole kit and caboodle of the story of Pink Shoes, but at the very end, Jackson says, I'll say pink is just a color. I'll say pink is the color of bubblegum and strawberry ice cream and cotton candy and the coolest shoes ever. So eventually, a child has the opportunity. We, even as an adult, can get to the opportunity in our life to the point where we can say, I can accept this. I can accept this part of myself, or I can accept my quirk, right? If pink is your favorite color, or, there's so many different things, but I feel this ties more into the thread of just really honoring yourself. And that's a big thread that I wanted to be able to at least touch upon right now as well, too. Because in many respects, one of my favorite expressions is we are a work of art, yet we're works in progress. And it's important to honor the benchmarks along the way. We can be very hard on ourselves in many respects. We can be very judgmental of ourselves. And we often wonder why we live in a very strong judgmental society. It's almost like everyone could be holding mirrors up to themselves, so to speak. When it comes to the thread of honoring ourselves, specifically one of the things that we love to do here in the Children's Book Spotlight series is provide some useful information in the forms of tips, tools, strategies for parents, caregivers, grandparents, educators, so they can immediately extract, after watching a Children's Book Spotlight series episode, implement it into their own life or lives, and then into the minds and the hearts of their children, their grandchildren, the children that they babysit, their students. What are some ways that we, again, as parents and caregivers especially, can do our part to help our children learn to not even just appreciate, because there's a difference between appreciate and honor. Appreciation can seem like more like a little surfacey. Honoring is this like, wow, I truly am a special person. I truly am a special being. What are some ways in which we can really further support our children and ourselves when it comes to that? Because, one of the things that comes to mind is read Pink Shoes every day, or at least for several days in a row if you're kind of moving through something, and see how you'll end up feeling about yourself. If whatever it is that you're struggling with, if you're bullying yourself, if you're not accepting a certain part of yourself, see what happens as the result of that. But besides reading Pink Shoes for several days or for an infinite period of time, what are some other specific ways in which that you feel that we can help our children to support them when it comes to learning to honor themselves that much more?
I think we all came here with a special gift. And hopefully we will discover that long before long before my age. I mean, I do believe that I'm supposed to write children's books. I'm already working on my next one. So I have a lot of stories in me, and my grandkids are keeping me well fed with material. I think as parents, caregivers, educators, the best thing we can do for our kids is talk to them. Turn off the screens, turn off the TV. Make it a habit to have dinner together. How was your day? What was the best thing that happened to you today? What was the worst thing that happened to you today? What made you sad? What did you do to help somebody? Tell them about your day. Tell them about your disappointments. Tell them about your successes. You know, just talk to them and listen to them. My grandson, Jackson in pink shoes, he is a free spirit. And that is what, when he walks into a room, he lights up the room. I never want him to lose that. Okay, and the whole thing around pink shoes, that's what I saw being taken away. It wasn't about the pink shoes. It was about his being, his essence, who he is. You know, I want him to be that magnetic person who says, hey, I like pink shoes. I'm going to wear pink shoes. You know, even if somebody makes fun of me, I don't care. I'm going to wear them because I like them. You know, I think that parents can and should do anything that doesn't hurt somebody else to allow their children to be who they are, to be who they came here to be, in all of their beauty. I think we've gotten away from that a little bit. You know, everybody has to conform. You know, everybody has to be a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, talk a certain way, behave a certain way. So I think the best thing we can do as parents and caregivers is just talk to our kids and really listen, really listen.
It goes back to that thread of having that conversation, whether it be the conversation with ourselves, whether it be the conversation with our spouse, especially the conversations with our kids, because kids' minds and hearts are like sponges. They pay attention to everything that we do. So if we, you know, one of the things, it's interesting, I remember before my grandfather passed, this was probably around like 2014, I believe. And I remember communicating with him when I was in a nursing home with him, you know, visiting him when he was there. And the Polish equivalent of grandfather is Jaja. So you got, for those who are keeping score at home, Babcia is Polish for grandmother, Jaja is Polish for grandfather. And so I remember communicating with my grandfather. And I told him, I said, you know, anytime, because again, at some point in time, I saw myself being in relationship and having a family. And I said, you know, Jaja, when that time comes, all problems, even if it's just conflict energy, can be solved with communication, with empathy, with understanding. And I reminded him of that, but I also reminded myself of that, because for a long period of time, Mary, I was very hard on myself. And it was probably one of the biggest obstacles of my life, because consciously we don't want to be hard on ourselves. Consciously we say we love ourselves and we're these amazing, amazing beings and we're filled with so much love. But then there's some of the other older stories, whether it be a story that someone told us when we were growing up as a child, whether it be a story that a former bully said, and it's very easy to buy into that story. When in truth, it's a matter of, and this goes back to another great Mr. Rogers-ism, is he always said that I like you and I love you just the way that you are. And it's interesting because I'm sure that Mr. Rogers got bullied over the years by people saying, why do you keep saying that, Fred? This is something that kids need to hear every day, that we need to tell ourselves every day. In earshot, in eye-shot distance, right across the way in my office, I am staring at a poster, Mr. Rogers and Daniel Striped Tiger, that says, there's no person in the world like you, and I like you just the way you are. I consciously frame that with it because, when I go through and I'm here all the time and moving through, to consciously look at that. So to have those reminders, I think that that's another way that we can do our part as parents and caregivers and custodians of our children, is to give those little small reminders, whether it be, the kids are heading back to school and they're getting ready to pack their lunch, whether it be in the lunch box. I'm assuming kids still have lunch boxes. I know those were big in the 80s when I was growing up, but to write a little post-it note. I love you. Have a great day. You got this, right? If your little one is moving through something, let them know that they've got this, because those reminders that they have will help them to not only conquer the challenges of the day, but move through any sort of additional challenges that they may experience later on in life. We're beginning to wind down our time here with our featured guest here on episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, best-selling children's author Mary Young. We are fully immersed in her brand new children's book, Pink Shoes. It is now available. You can, of course, head on over to Mary's official website, which we've included in the description below. It's maryyoungauthor.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Mary is by leaving a 5-star review on Amazon if you feel called and guided to do so for Pink Shoes. That lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and you do not see their copies of Pink Shoes stocked, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, episode number 217, and for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, superintendents. There's the back to school season, then there's National Bullying Month, but this is a book that is meant for children during all facets of the year. This isn't just the back to school season we're talking about. This isn't just National Bullying Prevention Month. Each and every day, let us make this the best school year possible. 2024, 2025. One of the ways you can do that is by connecting with Mary to schedule your own author school visit so that she can share Pink Shoes with your students. You can head on over to Mary's official website, maryyoungauthor.com, which again, we've included in the description below, so that you can connect with Mary directly to schedule your author school visit for the 2024-2025 school year. It's interesting because we learn each and every day. And in many respects, sometimes we forget. We think, okay, I went to grammar school, I went to high school, I went to college, I did some post-grad work, right? We learn beyond the scope of that. There's a term that's been utilized for many years called Earth School. And I really believe in that because, we learn each and every day. Some of the greatest things that we learn come through relationships with other people. Those are kind of like our divine assignments of sorts. Undoubtedly, Pink Shoes has taught you a lot. Specifically, what has Pink Shoes, what has the relationships that you have with Jackson and Carson, what has this whole process of crafting this story, what has Pink Shoes overall taught you about yourself and taught you about life?
Pink Shoes has taught me that something I always thought of myself. I'm a very sensitive person, and I've always been able to sense when somebody else is feeling hurt or downtrodden, abused. I feel like I'm something of an empath, and I can, and I get very upset when people are hurt unnecessarily, especially little people. And Pink Shoes, I mean, I just had, there was no hesitation around this incident. I knew. I actually stopped writing my story about the bucket swing. And I may go back to that at some point, but it just seems unimportant right now. I knew that Pink Shoes needed to be written to let everybody know, hey, we need to start talking about this. You know, we need to do a better job empowering our kids to be comfortable with speaking up for themselves, taking inspired action for themselves, and we need to start giving them tools to handle these moments in real time. Because I can tell you, Jackson really didn't know how to handle it, other than just feeling hurt and hiding away the pink shoes. He wanted to know if it was okay for him to like his pink shoes and wear them again. He needed somebody to validate that for him, and his mother did. I would like to empower kids so that they don't have to ask anybody to validate their choice of pink shoes. You know, that we all learn to get along, live and let live. You know, you want to wear pink shoes? Fine. I like yellow shoes. You know, I mean, it's so funny. So on my website, you can download some coloring pictures, and they're black and white drawings of some of the illustrations from the book. And in real life, Jackson has a little brother who's 4, and when Jackson's little brother was given one of the coloring pages in real life, he immediately got out a pink crayon and colored Jackson's sneakers in this picture pink. And then he colored his sneakers in the picture orange. I thought that was so wonderful that Carson said, you know what? My brother likes his pink shoes and I like my orange shoes. You know, I mean, it was just so, it was so innocent how it happened. And I thought, that's so lovely. I mean, I love that. I love that the purity of the moment. And I do think, and it's what I want to be very actively involved in at the elementary level this next school year is, you know, let's practice kindness. Let's talk about kindness. What are some ways we can be kind to one another? You know, and at the end, let's take a pledge that when we see somebody being treated meanly, that we will stand up for that person, and that we will not also engage in saying and doing mean things to our friends. And these were friends. These were his so-called friends that were doing the teasing. So that made it all that much more painful. So I hope that if nothing else, we're just all talking about and being sensitized to all the ways we can be kind to one another. If that's what comes out of Pink Shoes, I will consider myself an overachiever.
Kindness is a gift. Kindness is something that does not cost anything. It is free. And in many respects, kindness is what sets us free and helps other people to be kinder to themselves and set them free. So that's just one of the, you know, in many ways, shapes and forms, we try to reinvent the wheel. We try to overcomplicate things. And it literally goes back to the core of the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. Love yourself, because when you love yourself more, you can love other people more, and you can be kind to other people as well too. And again, being true to yourself, honoring yourself fully, not even just embracing yourself, not even just embracing your own uniquenesses and your differences from other people, and doing the same when you connect with other people throughout your daily life, but to honor yourself in the process. A lot of great messages that we have talked about here. Episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. You will be seeing more of Mary over the weeks and months to come. Stay connected to PR from the Heart's official social media platforms, as Mary has some exciting television interviews that will be coming your way. And of course, not to kind of get too ahead of ourselves, but one of the favorite times of the year here at the Children's Book Spotlight series, I know it's the summer reading season. You're saying, John and Mary, let's not talk about the holidays yet, but you know what? Christmas in July. We are going to be heading back to one of our favorite destinations, the Center for Media Innovation in downtown Pittsburgh, and we will be recording two very special in-studio episodes of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast with our fellow friend and neighbor. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on the popular long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. Mary is going to be joining David and I for a very special edition of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast in studio at the Center for Media Innovation for the month of November, as we're fully more so immersed in the holiday season as well too. So you will be seeing more of Mary beyond the scope of just this featured Children's Book Spotlight series episode. Raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. You see hands from Mary, hands from myself. We see hands of the little ones on screen. We also see paws up for little Forrest. And it's very interesting because if you're a movie buff, you remember, and you're Mary's age and my age, you remember growing up in the 80s and 90s, you remember the beloved movie critic duo, Siskel and Ebert. When they loved movies, they gave them 2 thumbs up. Well, one of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature is when little Forrest gives 2 paws up for a children's book that we are enjoying on a Children's Book Spotlight series episode, and little Forrest proudly gives 2 paws up for Pink Shoes. It's actually one of his newer favorite children's books in the process because, you know, one of the great things about pets, they remind us to be kind to ourselves, to not bully ourselves, to not bully other people. They're just balls of fur and love and energy. And so little Forrest proudly endorses and recommends Pink Shoes. I do as well. We all do here at PR from the Heart. So again, you can purchase your copy of Pink Shoes right now. Head on over to Mary's official website, maryyoungauthor.com. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. Again, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Mary's by leaving a 5-star review on Amazon that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. Once again, as well, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, if they do not stock their copies of Pink Shoes, make that kind recommendation. Little tip of the cap, let them know that you heard about Pink Shoes here on episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And again, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, superintendents, while you are making your plans for the back-to-school season in the 2024-2025 school year, be sure to think and not think hard at all, because this message really needs to be shared with your students. If you feel called and guided to connect with Mary to facilitate your own author's school visit as part of the 2024-2025 school year, you can connect with Mary. We've included her website in the description below, which once again is maryyoungauthor.com. We've also included Mary's social media platforms below so that you can stay connected with her on Facebook and on Instagram. Keep the conversation going post Children's Book Spotlight series, beyond the back to school season, beyond National Bullying Prevention Month, because again, this message is something that we need to remind ourselves every day, whether if we have the pink shoes, if we're having difficulties fully honoring and embracing ourselves, or if we're finding ourselves projecting on other people. Being able to have that conversation, it truly all begins within. As we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But fear not, there are many more magical trolley stops to come just around the corner, including our next Children's Book Spotlight series episode. We're super excited to head on the road, something we haven't had the opportunity to do in the near 6 years that we have been doing this program. Of course, we're going to be celebrating our 6-year anniversary celebration in just a couple of weeks. But we're going to be traveling to the City of Angels. To be precise, we're actually going to be in Hollywood for episode number 218 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We are very much getting ready behind the scenes now for our annual flagship event, PR from the Heart's Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom, which is heading to Barnes & Noble Mira Mesa right here in San Diego, California, the second annual Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom event. One of the co-headliners who will be joining us, you've seen him on Parks and Recreation, you've seen him on Netflix's Alexa and Katie. He is, of course, the creator of the popular graphic novel series Louie and Bear, published by Penguin Kids. He is also a very gifted artist as well, too, in addition to a children's author and illustrator. And you also know him as the husband of Tiffany Thiessen, who played Kelly Kapowski on NBC Saved by the Bell, and Valerie Malone on Fox's Beverly Hills 90210. Brady Smith will be joining us in studio at the Third Wheel Podcast Studio in Hollywood, California, for a very special in-studio episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We'll be talking more about building a culture of reading in your classroom. We'll be sharing more about his inspiring story. So we encourage you to tune in the process. You can also stay connected and watch any of the previous Children's Book Spotlight series episodes that you may have missed. One of the many ways, again, that you can pledge your support for us here at the program, here at the Children's Book Spotlight series and PR from the Heart, is to subscribe to our official YouTube channel and to enjoy any of the previous trolley stops on the Children's Book Spotlight series, and also by sharing this particular episode that you have been enjoying, that has been episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. After subscribing to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and joining the more than 17,000 members of the PR from the Heart family, our loyal subscribers on YouTube, you can, of course, share this very special trolley stop that you have been enjoying. That has been, again, episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. But there are many more magical trolley stops to come, because we're about ready to head into the back to school season. And then, of course, we're going to be heading into our 6-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series. This is all a part of our 10-year anniversary celebration of being of service to children's authors across the country and around the world. So if you are a children's author, or if you are a middle grade author and would love to share your inspiring story on a forthcoming edition of the Children's Book Spotlight series, just like Mary did here this week on episode number 217 of the program, we encourage you to head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Instagram, Facebook, X, all at PR from the Heart. We also, again, want to give a little tip of the cap to, again, we mentioned him once previously, one of our favorite neighbors. Again, you remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. Each and every month, David joins us for the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight series, where together, David and I, as a little tip of the cap to Mr. McFeely, his character on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, we deliver heartfelt reviews of the newest children's books that are available from the shining stars in the world of children's literature, to let parents, caregivers, grandparents, educators know what's available and on the market for your children, for your students, if you are an educator as well, to heading into the back to school season. So if you are a children's author and would love to have David and I share and review and spotlight your brand new children's book, delivering a heartfelt review of your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us via our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or any of our social media platforms at PR from the Heart. And as part of our 10-year anniversary celebration, we've been looking back. But it's also been said that the only time that you look back is to see how far that you've come. We have been so privileged to be of service to some of the top children's authors in the world, ranging from John Parra, Catherine Roy, Sharon Lois and Bram, Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink-a-doo, ranging to those children's authors whose missions and journeys are now just taking flight. If you are a children's author, and if you are looking for dedicated PR, publicity support to facilitate your own book media tour, whether it be in your neighborhood or a national book media tour, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com. Schedule your courtesy connection call. Let us see how we can be of service to you for not only the holiday season, but we are already making some banner plans for 2025. So we hope that you join us, because now is truly the best time to be a member of the PR from the Heart family. One final time, we encourage you to head on over to maryyoungauthor.com and to head on over to amazon.com. Purchase and enjoy your copy of Pink Shoes, the brand new best-selling children's book from our featured guest here in episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series from Mary Young. Leave a 5-star review if you feel called and guided to do so on Amazon. If you head on over to your favorite local children's or independent bookstore, your favorite local library, and they do not stock their copies, plural I should say, of Pink Shoes, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. And again, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, superintendents, while making your plans for the 2024-2025 school year, you can schedule your very own author school visit with Mary by connecting with her via her official website, maryyoungauthor.com, that we have included in the description below. But again, as we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. We want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series. It's hard to believe, 10-year anniversary celebration, literally almost to the very day when you are now enjoying this episode for the very first time. We walked into the Erie County Clerk's office in Buffalo, New York, and we said, we want to help children's authors. And fast forward 10 years, and here's where we now stand. So we want to thank you for your continued support of children's authors, of middle grade authors all across the country and all around the world. Just like Mary, who again are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. For your continued support of local libraries, children's and independent bookstores, truly the pillars of our community. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. Two things, Mary, before we close out our Children's Book Spotlight series episode here with you. We always like to close things out. We've mentioned his name several times here. We felt his presence in his spirit, especially talking about the message of kindness. And in many respects, Mr. Rogers did this not only through the neighborhood, but when he toured the country, whether he spoke at a college commencement speech, whether he spoke in front of an organization such as the American Library Association, most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer. He encouraged us, and he always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a full minute, he encouraged us to remember those who helped love us into being. And that was his way of saying, remember those people who reminded us to be kind of ourselves, to be kind to other people, those angels on our path, so to speak. Who are some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize here on episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that helped love you, Mary Young, into being?
My mom and dad. My mom and dad. My dad always said, you can be anything you want. You can be anything you want. And he's right. He's right. I've had lots of careers. I've always wanted to be a published author, and now I am. And it took me a long time to actualize it, but I did. And it feels right. So I've had lots of wonderful teachers and professors over the years, swim coaches. I swam competitively growing up all my life. My siblings, my husband, my children, my grandchildren. I mean, they've all loved me into being, because I'm still becoming. You know, when we stop becoming, we're no longer here. So I've had a wonderful life. I'm grateful for all the love and all the people who have pushed me back onto my path. So.
Paraphrasing, and thank you for sharing all of those wonderful people, paraphrasing the words of Mr. Rogers, whether those people are near or far, whether they are walking this earthly plane or smiling down from heaven, that they are undoubtedly proud of you, knowing that you have made an incredible difference in the world. And as the result of giving through your time as an educator, through your time as realtor, through your time as now a children's author, you have given freely from your heart for a long period of time. This goes back to us and the connection that really we all have with the Disney energy. So it's interesting because, in addition to being huge fans of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, we're huge Disney buffs here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. The Disney magic, Mary, reminds us that we have the ability to bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions. We have the ability to fulfill our own wishes. And we have the opportunity to help those who are on our path, whether it be family, friends, loved ones, you name it. And we go back to a great year. We go back to 1992. I believe I was 11, if I'm not mistaken, at that point in time. We remember the late Robin Williams. We remember the Disney beloved classic Aladdin. We remember how he voiced the genie of the lamp. And we have a little segment that closes out every Children's Book Spotlight Series episode that we like to call 3 Wishes. So again, you have been giving freely from your heart to your students, to your clients, to your family, now to children and parents and families and educators across the country and around the world. So this is your time to receive. So you are being given 3 wishes, Mary. Now, I think the only automatic disqualifiers, as the genie of the lamp once said, you can't have someone fall in love with you. You can't make that happen. You can't force that. And you can't ask for more wishes. But anything else is fair game. So these wishes, they can be for yourself. They can be for the children of the world. They can be for anything or for anyone. What will your 3 wishes be?
World peace. World peace is by far my number 1 wish. I would wish that kindness becomes our default behavior. And I would wish that every kid feels that they belong. Those are my 3 wishes. Those are my 3 wishes.
Those are not only beautiful wishes, but they're powerful wishes. And I believe firmly that when one's wishes come from one's heart, they have a greater capacity and a greater chance, a greater likelihood of coming true. We hope that you've enjoyed episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. I know that I have. And that Mary has and little Forrest has well too. Lastly, before we close out the Children's Book Spotlight Series, again, we mentioned his name a handful of times, and there's a reason for that. He really has been the bastion of kindness for going back many years and many decades. But we remember Mr. Rogers, and in many respects, in different ways, shapes, and forms. And he actually did this most notably through his own natural weight. Did you know that Mr. Rogers weighed 143 pounds for his entire natural adult life? 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. He reminded us for a long time, and he still continues to as he shines down on us from above. He reminds us of our inherent worth and our inherent value, that we are liked, that we are loved just the way that we are. And it all begins by being kind and loving to ourselves. So as a little tip of the cap to Mr. Rogers, we share our 3 numbers to close things out of 243. As Mary was kind enough to join us and spend some of her free time seeing with little Forrest, we are reminding you that there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. That is our reminder for you that we like you, that we love you just the way that you are, that we see your inherent worth and your inherent value, that you are special beyond measure. There's no one else like you in the world, that you are very much needed, especially at this particular point in time. Pink shoes and all, honoring yourself and then some, while also doing your part to embrace and celebrate the uniquenesses and differences of your fellow neighbor. That's really where it all begins, and that's where it all ends. We no longer have to reinvent the wheel or overcomplicate things. For little Forrest, For Mary Young, for myself, John Masiulionis, we hope that you have enjoyed episode number 217 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. You're saying goodbye, little Forrest. Bye.
Bye-bye.